or thinking as implications and consequences. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to start by talking about the meaning of this point so that we understand this point that we're talking about. So think through, so what is thinking through implications, or thinking, or thinking bearing in mind implications and consequences, or thinking as implications and consequences. What do we mean by this? This is talking about the fact that implications are claims. First of all, let's give you the definition and meaning of implications. Implications are claims or truths that logically follow from other claims or truth. Or implications are what come out as a result of some thinking or some analysis or some reasoning. So if you are thinking on some truth, the thinking you are engaged in will lead to some implications. If you are deliberating on some claims or assumptions or ideas or concepts, that process that you have engaged yourself in, the process of thinking, will lead to one implication or the other. Now, I said it leads to implication and consequences. I think it is important here for you people to know that there is a slight difference between implications and consequences. I, like many other people, never even knew that there is a difference between implication and consequences. We all use, and general public use, those two words interchangeably. We talk about implications, we talk about consequences, and those things we just look at them as synonyms, which is true. To some extent, they look like synonyms. But since we are talking about thinking, and I want to explain to you the difference. When it comes to thinking, whatever you are doing in your mind, but not in actions, you can only have implications. So thinking only leads to implications, not to consequences. It will eventually lead to consequences, but that is later. But it will, thinking leads, act of thinking or reasoning or all kinds of things like claims, truth, concepts, or things like that, they will lead you to implications. But consequences are what follows after your actions, after you have engaged in one action or the other. Because thinking is not action yet. So thinking attracts implications, while actions attract consequences. I don't know if that is clear enough. No? People are saying, It's so simple. For example, you are thinking bad about your mother. And we know the implication that led to your example last time. Mm-hmm. That is, I'm talking to Kate right now. She says she doesn't know the difference between implication. My explanation is not clear enough for her. So when you're thinking bad about your mom and your anybody, then you begin to have anger, or you begin to have some attitude towards her. So that thinking that you have engaged in is having consequences. It's having implications. So what you have, whatever your thinking has led you to, is called implications. For example, let's say you are thinking about pornography, or whatever you are thinking about, but that leads you to implications. But when you actually go and do something bad, let's say you go and slap somebody, then you have consequences. So implication is what you get as a result of thinking, engaging inside you about something. Like Jesus said, if you look at a woman in your eyes or with your heart to do adultery with her, that you committed adultery. So, but that is implication right there, because it makes you unholy and all that. But consequences is when you actually go and do it. You got the difference now? Okay, so what leads to but you don't. This is not for general public. This is just for you, because everybody will still use them interchangeably anyway. So consequences come as a result of actions. Implications come as a result of thought process. But people use them, like I said, interchangeably. But just for you to know the difference could help you. So thinking attracts implications, yes. While actions attract consequences, yes. You got it. So implications are connected to your thoughts, whether you see those implications or you don't see those implications. Sometimes we see implications, we don't see implications. So because implications are not always visible, sometimes we neglect them. We have the tendency to think that nothing happened. But if the reason why I'm teaching about it right now, what I think you should know about it, is because if you are a thinker, if you think deeply, and if you are a critical thinker, then you should know that even though you don't see the implications, but there are always implications, because they are not always immediate, and they are not always visible, and they are not always coming to announce themselves. You might not even know. You might not be able to trace the connection between what you were thinking and the result you got, the implications that came sometimes. But if you are a detailed person, and the reason why I'm teaching you about this, about thinking, is for you to be a detailed person, for you to be an analytical person. But if you are analyzing everything that's happening in your life, you will see that the implications are there. And the implications could be good or bad. And that most implications are actually connected to what you had taught before. So if you see a lot of things that you do today, they are actually coming as a result of what you have thought about before. But with consequences, it's much more easier, because consequences are the things that comes after you have done something. So they are faster, they are quicker, they are more visible, they are more, immediate, they announce themselves more, they are more obvious. So those are the consequences, because they come as a result of some action or the other that you have been engaged in or that you have done. So So as thinkers, we need to know that thinking leads to something, and that's what Jesus was trying to teach us when he said, when you look at but you didn't do it, you still have implications. When you do it, you have another consequence. You still have another, but still at every level you have some results of what you have done, what you are doing. So it's important for you to think about things that are good and things that are healthy. The reason why this will be good for us is because if you know that all thinking has implications, then you will probably think ahead before you do anything. And before you even think anything, it will help you to be able to guide your mind, control your thoughts, and to create your separate world for your thoughts. To create, to create a prison for your thoughts. To create some restraints. There was time I gave a teaching in the last HMT about restraints. So, if you know about implications, then you want to put restraints in your mind. Those restraints will help you from, what you did. I saw your Kate's broadcast when she spoke about our mind is like brothel. So for our minds not to become that brothel that she was talking about, we need to know that thinking don't just come and go. That when they come with implications. So because there are implications, then you can easily understand why, oh, okay, that's why I must put the restraints and the protection around my mind. But when you actually go and do it, then you have consequences. Now, let me give you how you do that. I'm going to give you some ideas on how to apply this principle that we're talking about. So how do you do that? How do you apply this principle that we're talking about? First of all, whenever you are thinking or you're about to think about anything, stop and first of all trace the possible implications of those thoughts. Especially for women. When you are a woman and somebody is treating you very nicely at work, very kind to you and giving you flowers and giving you all that, and you begin to think about that, you tell me what the what the implications will be. You fall in love. You fall in love with the person, you're in trouble. There is one lady in my house right now. She said, I just saw her behaving funny. I said, what's wrong with you? She said, oh, Pastor, I'm in love. I said, how can you be in love? You are in love with who? She said, I can tell you. Somebody here in the house. I said, I thought you are busy working here in this house. How do you have time? I said, when did that happen? She said, nobody knows. But, I think they meet with the guy. A guy somewhere working here as well. And so I said, does the guy know? The guy doesn't know anything. No, he doesn't know. I said, so why are you thinking like that? So do you see him as your future husband? She said, no. I said, why? She said, because he's too young for her. She's older than her. So then why are you in love? How come? She said, well, because I saw him so kind and so nice, and I'm thinking about it, and so I lost it. You see, that's what happens. Even though the guy doesn't even know anything at all, and he didn't even do anything specially for her or work. He was just living his own life. And this girl started thinking. It's like a clock. Every second. So she started thinking. Every thinking has consequence. All thinking has a consequence. So if that's what you are thinking about, you will do it. And, like myself, I stopped watching movies. You know why I stopped watching movies? I'm talking of not documentary movies. I'm talking of general movies like films. I stopped working since I was 24. And the reason is because when I watch movies, I used to be okay when I was watching it. But once it's over, I begin to remember some funny... I begin to remember some emotional part of it, some emotions and things like that. And those thinkings, I thought they were not dangerous. You wait. Especially when I was a single guy. I was a single guy living alone by myself in a 3-bedroom apartment with a car and an office car with a driver and everything. And each time I watch these things, every temptation I thought I had overcome used to come back. They used to return just by me thinking.
My mom told me that.
Your mom told you that? Okay. Your mom has experience. That's why everything I thought God had delivered me from. And I used to fast and pray. And then I traced it. I used to fast and pray that God should deliver me from lust, from this and that, from all these emotional attachments. I pray and fast. Then all the fasting and prayer just disappear after I watch a movie. I just need to watch one movie. And all that fasting and prayer, that 30 days or 20 days, all of them just like I didn't do anything. Everything comes back afresh. Then I discovered that, wait a minute. When I fast and pray, and I still watch this thing, even though I'm fasting and praying, it doesn't go anywhere. But when I don't fast and pray, and I don't watch, even though I don't fast and pray, but I don't watch these movies, I don't need to pray and fast too, because there's all the temptations don't come back. Then I got it. Ooh. So you don't fast and pray to overcome this temptation. What you need just to avoid it, that's all. I just say, okay, I get rid of the problem myself. Because I was trying to ask God to come and fix for me what I was creating for myself. I was the one creating the temptation for my own self. But I was thinking it was Satan creating it. Then I was now asking God to come and fix it. Whereas I'm the one who created it with my own eyes. Oh. And then I could just fix it with my own eyes too and put it off. So a lot of things that Christians are engaged in are in connection with these things. A lot of things are like this. So a lot of Christians, they are asking God to come and fix some of their problems, but they created it by thinking about it. And they don't think about the fact that thinking has implications. For example, let me give you an example of this principle in the Bible. If you look at Genesis chapter 4, before Cain killed the brother Abel, God came to him and told him that there is a temptation at your door. There is a temptation at your door. There is a problem at your door, just coming at your door right now. If you are not careful, you have to resist it. Don't think about it. Don't accept it. A thought coming to knock. It's knocking at your door. Close the door. Don't touch it. Don't open the door for it. If you do, then it's going to kill you. But he had not done anything. But he already had a thought, you see. So God was telling him, hey, stop the thought. Close down. Shoot down the thought. Shut it down. And that's what we're talking about. Because God knew there will be an implication for him entertaining those thoughts of envy concerning his brother, for him to have entertained those thoughts of anger. So those thoughts that were going on in his mind, they were going to lead to some consequence or the other. I mean, you know about the consequence. I mean, you know about the implications. They are going to lead to implication or the other. So they led to an implication. Then the implication they led to is that he actually went and committed murder. And then the murder led to consequence of him being cursed. So because the implication is the possible things or the thing that whatever you are doing might not be immediately visible, but it has, whatever you are thinking might not be immediately visible, but it will definitely have implication, like in the case of Cain. Like for example, when there were a lot of problems in this regard in the book of Kings and Samuel. There was this king Esau or Saul. Is it Esau or Saul? Saul, that was about to kill, that wanted to kill David. He was always having thoughts, and those thoughts were always putting him in problem. The king Esau, or was it Saul? Saul. So he was throwing arrow at David. Why? Because he was afraid. He was thinking in his mind that this guy will take my place because he killed Goliath. Then he was, having thought of his kingdom being overthrown, so he started chasing him away in the caves and all things like that. So consequences of thoughts. I mean, it's not consequences, what they call it. Implications of his thoughts that led to bad actions. And those actions led to consequences. King Saul. Then if you look at the case with Jacob and Isaac and his wife. It was his wife Rebecca. Isaac and his wife, or Rachel. So Isaac and Rachel was pregnant, right, with those two twins, and those things that God gave a revelation that there are two kids in your belly. that, there are like two nations that are fighting among themselves. So that, for example, is a process of thought. I don't think she was, because she was thinking, okay, the hearing one is going to be as the servant of the other one. So she came up with some thoughts in her mind that, okay, one is going to be greater than the other. Okay, the one who is going to be greater is the one that will be mine. I'm going to set it up. And she put all that thought, all those things were in thoughts in her mind, But it led to a big problem. And that led to even nations, the consequences of those things she did. Because then she told Jacob to go and deceive the father, and then to go and put the food, to deceive both the father and the brother. And so it led to actions. Is it Isaac and Rebekah? Did I say Rachel? Is Rebekah, right? Rebekah, Isaac and Rebekah. So Rachel is whose wife? Rachel is the wife of, I thought Rachel was the wife of Isaac. It was Rebekah. Rebekah is the wife of Isaac. And Rachel is whose wife? Jacob? Jacob, is it Jacob's wife? Rachel? Yeah. Rachel is Jacob's wife. Yeah, that's true. She's the one that is not so beautiful, right? Yeah. Then they have to get the sister also. Yeah, that's Rachel. That's Rachel. But Rebecca is the wife of Isaac, yeah. So I'm talking about Isaac and Rebecca. So, so you see what thought could do. Thought could lead to big problems. Big problems. Let me show you another implication of thoughts. The same thing happened to Abraham and the wife, Sarah. Okay, let's analyze the situation with Sarah. She discovered that even though God promised them a descendant, a heir, and then she discovered she's not getting pregnant, and time was going. Time was going, and here she is not getting pregnant. You know what was going on in her mind? Thoughts. Thoughts were going on in her mind. But thoughts have what? Implications. You know the implication? Let me give you my servant. So she came up with the idea. It was not Abraham's idea. Because she was thinking. So thinking led her to doubt. So thinking like that make her to doubt. Oh, okay, Pastor Abi Daramola is here. She said Leah is the ugly one. Oh, okay. Leah is the one that is ugly. And then instead of her, got Rebecca as Rachel, got Rachel as the replacement. Okay, I got it now. I got it now. So anyway, so you see, Sarah started doubting God because of what she was thinking about. So that doubt is an implication right there. It's an implication of wrong thinking. And then the doubt led to crooked ideas. She came up with ideas that were evil. And then she acted on those ideas. And got her husband to get Ishmael. Do we call it Ismail or Ishmael? Ishmael. And that Ishmael is a big problem now because all the Muslims are coming from there. So just from somebody's thinking, just from Sarah thinking funny, that led to implications, and that led to consequences, and we're still reaping the results. If up to now, our whole world is divided just because somebody was not taking the thoughts serious. and not thinking that, thoughts could have big consequences like this. Same with Judas. Same with Judas. Because he was with the money, and so he thought, because thoughts come to all of us, and he thought he could just get rid of Jesus. And now, that led to the killing of the Son of God. He had to commit suicide and all that. So a lot of bad things happen when people, don't know that there are consequences. There are, whatever implications to their thinking. But you see, Satan also wanted to use the same principle to capture Jesus, if you remember. When Jesus came out of the fast, 40 days fast, he was not talking with anybody. Those things that, the temptations of Jesus that we know about, those 4 temptations of Jesus, normally we think that Satan came to talk to him. No, it was in the thoughts. So when he was feeling hungry, thoughts were coming to his mind, suggestions, ideas. That, okay, since you are hungry, why don't you just, but there are stones here, why don't you just make some bread out of the stones? But in his thinking process, in his thoughts, he was able to overcome it. So it didn't lead to a negative action that could have led to a very bad consequence. Then, because he was on the mountain, because you had to come back from the mountain to the ground, so he could see the wealth of the nation and imagine in his mind the wealth of the whole world. So that's Satan making him to pay attention to that and trying to engage his mind with negative thoughts, or with evil thoughts or temptative thoughts that could have led him to compromise his calling. And that consequence would have been very bad. Huh?
Also, the king Herod, he was worried about Jesus coming. And
who was worried? Herod. Uh-huh. So there are a lot of things that could come out of just ordinary thoughts. And those things are what we call implications. You are talking about?
King Herod.
King Herod.
He was afraid of...
King Herod also conceived a thought of fear, being afraid of Jesus or somebody coming to take away his throne. And as a result, he couldn't kill Jesus, but he did kill thousands of other kids. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So the same thing with the same king. I think, is it the same King Herod or another King Herod also tried to kill the church, tried to kill the apostles. He killed Jacob, he wanted to kill Peter, and so just because of thought of fear. So, yeah. So, but if we know this, we'll be able to really take charge of our thinking process and know that, oh, wow, every thinking has implications. Now it's more understandable, right, than the topic when you just have the topic. But the focus today is not consequences, because we are talking about thinking, and we are talking about thinking. Because consequences come from actions. Yes, we know that it will lead to that eventually, but that's later. So I'm paying more attention to the implication. So that's why I call it like all thinking has implication. So it's about the implications we're talking about, because that's about thoughts. Okay, now, so how do we use that? How do we control that? How do we manage that? Well, like I said, every time you are engaged in some form of thinking or the other, you should think about, you should try to trace. You have to do a mental tracing. Try to navigate in your mind and use your foresight to see where could this logically lead to? What could be the end result of this kind of thinking? This kind of thinking, where could it land? What are the, the connections, the thinking process that could be connected to this, and then what are the actions that it could lead to? Because thinkings lead to actions. So trace the implications, and then after you discover what action it could lead to, that will help you to know if it's going to be bad or good. If it's going to be bad, then those actions will be bad actions that will lead to bad consequences. And if it's going to be good, then you could develop it. You could continue developing it. Somebody is asking, how do we separate the thoughts of God from the thoughts of man? First of all, we just read what somebody wrote for us now. I think it's Adelaja, this Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, that only think about only the things that are good, that are nice, and all that. And then she also wrote about Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, that we should cast down thoughts that are against the will of God, the purposes of God. So what that also means is that we could find out if this a thought is good or bad through the Word of God. So the Word of God will let you know if this is conflicting with the Word of God or not. But another principle that I use to tell people to adopt is, you should think, this thing I'm thinking, is it good for God? Is it for the advancement of the purposes of God? Is it good for other people? And is it good for me? Don't put yourself first. Put it in that order. Put God first. Put the interest of God first. What is good? This thing I'm thinking, this thing I'm doing, is it good for God? Is it good for others? Before you talk about yourself, is it good for me? They were talking about changing one's name after marriage for the ladies. And somebody was talking about the fact that I never even thought that my decision, to change my name after marrying my husband could have bad consequence to my relatives. Why? Because we're only thinking about ourselves. Then she said, actually, as a matter of fact, she is the last person that is carrying the surname, the name of her father line. And she just went and changed it and just removed it and put another person's name. Because she never thought about the consequence of her actions and her thinking on other people. So if we really want to know if we are doing what is right or not, we should think how that is going to benefit God or harm the purposes of God, or how that is going to benefit other people or rather harm other people. Okay. Another way to use this form of thinking and implication is always ask yourself the simple question: what are the positive implications of this thought that I'm engaged in right now? And secondly, what are the negative implications of this thought I'm engaged in? To very much to my Instagram, Papa Moita ni moja wkushili. So the next thing you want to do, of course, is that you want to, having considered all possible consequences, you want to retrace your path and begin to think in the opposite direction so that you'll be able to come up with thoughts that have positive implications rather than negative implications. But let me now go to, after giving you that explanation or method of application, let me now give you more practical questions that you could ask yourself that will help you to apply this principle on a daily basis. So let me ask you some questions, or you could write down these questions that will help you. Number one, if I decide, ask yourself, if you decide to do so and so thing, what things might happen? Those are more practical questions you should ask yourself. If I decide to do so and so, what might happen? So these are still thoughts. The thoughts. So those thoughts will lead to some implications. But if you actually do the things, then it will lead to some consequences. Okay, a GK man is asking, people always say God told them. Does it mean God told, or is it their thoughts? Either way, it is their thoughts. Even if it is God who told them, that thing God told them will still come through their thoughts. So no matter what revelation God gives you, don't you ever believe, no matter what prophet you see before you, no matter how accurate anybody says, no matter how mighty God, man of God they are, and they tell you God says, know that no matter who he is, he's still just telling you his thoughts. Because there is no way God will speak to him without his thoughts. All of us, I'm a pastor myself, all of us, God only uses our thoughts to speak to us. Unless God appears to you and speaks audibly, which is a rare situation, even though it's possible. So the fact that even God comes to speak to somebody or give somebody a revelation, that doesn't mean that it's not coming through his thought. It's still coming through his thought. So God could actually bring an accurate message or an excellent message or a wonderful message, a God message. But because it's still going to come through the thought of a man, it could still be polluted. And it could still be misunderstood. And it could still be it could still appear somehow, anyhow. So no matter what revelation, don't even think that, is it God speaking? God doesn't speak. As long as he's going to speak through man, he doesn't speak independent of man's thoughts. It will still be through man. And if it's through man, it's going to be with some damages and with some pollutions and with some, with different kind of, So the man factor will always be there, even if it's God that is talking through a man. So that's why you should never go ahead and put your life on some prophet's thoughts or on some men of God that they are going to be giving you some revelation or the other. Any revelation they give you will still come from their mind, from what they know. So they will be limited. So they will be limited or enhanced by their own developments as well. Okay, so the next question you want to ask yourself when you are thinking through implications is, you need to ask yourself, if I decide not to do this thing, if I decide not to do this and this, what will happen? What will happen? What will be the implications and consequences? So learn to think things through, right through to the implications, and then don't stop at the implications. Go ahead and trace it through your mind as well until you get to actions and consequences. Because they are one always leads to the other. Next question you want to ask yourself is, when you listen to people, when people speak, right? And when they're expressing their position or their thoughts or their mind, be careful to always ask yourself the same question. What are they implying when they say that? And of course, you've got to ask yourself these similar questions too. So anytime you are thinking about anything, you say, okay, what do I really want to say? What is the goal that I want to attain at the end of the day? What is the result that I desire to have? Next point. In any thinking that you are engaged in, take the time to ask yourself another question, which says, what is likely to happen if I decide to do this as against this? So do comparison. Do logical comparisons. If I do this, what are the consequences? As against if I do this. If I do the other thing, what are the implications? If I think about this, if I plan this, what implications would this lead me to? And if I do that, what are the consequences I'm going to have? When you listen to someone, another question you want to have in mind is to always ask yourself, to always ask other people that you listen to, give them the benefit of a doubt to clarify themselves. So one of the questions you might want to ask people is, excuse me, what are you implying by that? What do you mean by that? What are you trying to say? What are you referring to? What are you implying by that? So let them explain to you. And when they explain something to you, make sure that their explanation leads to some implications or consequences. Don't let them just stop at explanation. Some people just explain things to you, but they never ever get to implications of those things they're explaining to you. They never tell you the implications. And they never tell you the consequences. So you have to be targeting consequences when people talk to you about anything. And you must be targeting implications. Those must be your target. Those must be the things that you are actually, after. That's the information you want to hear. Next point. Whenever you are thinking on doing anything or about anything, another question you might want to ask yourself is, how serious are the implications of these my thoughts? Or how serious are the implications of these my decisions or these my actions? How serious are the consequences or implications of these my thoughts, actions? How significant are they to me? The consequences, the implications, how significant are they to other people, to God? That's another question. How significant are the consequences or implications of this action or these thoughts on me, on other people, on God? Start with God always. On God, others, and me. For example, if somebody tells you an information like the majority of black Americans are in prison. Or let's say somebody comes to you and says, there are more percentage of black male that are in jail more than the other nationalities in America, or more than other races in America. That's a truthful statement. But what you want to target is the implication? Why is the implication of him saying that? What are the consequences? Does he want to say, okay, is he implying that since black male are more in the American jail than other races, is he implying that America is not a fair society or a just society? Or is he implying that black people must take responsibility for their community and their lives? Or is he implying that we have to go and form our political party and fight for our interests? So always look for implications and implications in people's thoughts and thought process. What?
It's like motive. Like motives. You are looking for motives for this person.
It might not be the motive of the person might not. The motive is different from implication.
He's trying to support an argument.
Motive, it might be connected. Sometimes motive and implication are the same. But some people don't even think about motive. They just say things. But that thing they say still has implications, even though the motive might be different. So if you say blacks are put in prison in large numbers and other white people are not, so his motive might be saying to improve the black community. Maybe that's his motive. But implication that I'm having is, okay, it means that the society is not just to the black people. You see? So the same thought, but so you want to find out from the person who is saying that, what are his own implications? What is he implying? So you don't say what are the implications, then you will hide it. But if you say what is he implying, that's easier. Yeah, someone said DSA is teaching us the power of constructive thinking. Yep, I hope it helps. I hope it helps. Does implication initiate a motive? It could be that way, but it could be vice versa as well. The motive could, most of the time, the motive actually initiates implications. But sometimes also the implication could initiate a motive. So if you realize that you are already obsessed with a thought, or you are already having a thought that could lead to bad consequences. Because, for example, the woman, this is not one case or two cases. In fact, last month, I read in the Nigerian newspaper that one man killed the wife because he discovered that all his 6 children, none of them is his. Then, 3 months ago in England, there was a TV program, I think it's a show program, it's a TV show, where a Nigerian father, I think a son, it was shown everywhere, everybody was talking about it, that this man came to the television to find out, is he my father or not? Is he my son? I think the children, maybe one was in Nigeria, the father was Nigerian, and he was here also. Then they did a medical test on live television, live program in England. And they discovered that, okay, it was a reality show, yeah. Okay, they call it Jeremy Kyle.
Yeah, Jeremy Kyle.
Yeah, okay, Jeremy Kyle show, yeah. Everybody saw it, went all over the world. And the old man, 60-year-old, I think, was crying because the result came that the only son, I think, is not the father, it's not the father, it's not the son.
Not biological son. Not
biological son. And then, it became a big DNA test, confirmed it, that it was not his son. But it became a big thing. And the man was weeping. And the boy also was frustrated. Personally, I wouldn't have, what I don't like about that, is he my father or is not my father, is that I don't believe in the fact that a man that trained you up to be 30 years old, you are 30 years old or 40 years old, he trained you all from when you came from the hospital.
Shouldn't matter.
He gave you, he gave you everything you have right now.
I wouldn't even bother.
I wouldn't bother. He trained me. I don't care. But he's my father as long as he trained me. But in Nigeria, this is like a craze. It's like about blood. What is blood? If you put your value system in that child, if you train that child in the right way and put your value system and give your whole life to that child, that is you are the father. It is not who slept with the woman that is the father. It is who gave life to the child that is the father. So I know a lot of families whereby a father had brought up the son, and then he goes and say, oh, I want to find my real father, or even mother. Some people say, I want to look for my own mother. But your mother was not here for you. Your mother didn't make you anything. And then you now deny the man that contributed everything to your life, or the woman that raised you up and gave you everything. You now want to walk out on him and look for somebody that was lost, that was never there in your life. I want to say that I have the same situation. I have the same situation. Because in my own, my name that you know right now, Adelaja, Sunday Adelaja. That's not my father's name. That Adelaja is the surname of my mother. Not the surname of my father. Not the surname of my father. I don't even know the surname of my father. And everybody is asking, do you want to know? Do you look for him? I don't care to look for him. I don't care. I'm not interested. The person who invested his life in me, the family who raised me up, put everything in me, they are the ones who are my father. So I'm not interested in all the DNA test. I'm not interested. The person who was there for me is my father. Now, to answer your question. So now, to answer your question. If a woman or a man or somebody discovers that is obsessed with a thought already, or is already having some thoughts that could have negative consequences, so what does he do? Number one, you must know that all thoughts that you have, every thought that you have, is not coming from the sky, or from the moon, or from the atmosphere. Your thoughts and your that you are having right now, they were brought to you from somewhere. Thoughts are as a result of some knowledge or some information that you heard before. So the reason why women in Africa, for example, or people in Africa are obsessed with having children, by all means, to keep their family, because that's what is being taught to them. That's what they've heard. That's what has been told to them since they were young, that you must have a child, that there is no marriage, and you are not a good wife, or you are not a productive wife if you don't have children when you marry. So that's not just coming from somewhere. That's coming from people talking about it. So for you to change that thought process in you and thinking bad or feeling bad, you must change the information that comes to your ear. You must be able to block those information, at least, and begin to expose your ears and yourself to other form of information where people are celebrating women without children, where other women without children are achieving the best they could become, where women without children are better than women with children. So when you are exposing yourself to that other side of life, and when that is what you begin to feed yourself with, you will discover that the inferiority complex that you are feeling before disappears.
So you need to feed yourself with another information.
You need to get, because our thoughts don't just come from nowhere. Our thoughts are a result of 5 things. The information you hear, the things you see, the 5 senses, the 5 organs of senses. The things you see, the things you smell, the things you touch, the things you taste. So all these things, especially what you hear and what you see and what you touch. Just like I said about the why did I stop watching movies? Because I hear they create in me something that I couldn't fight with. Okay, if you are obsessed by the desire for success, you could end up, being like the Anambra boys. I've learned not to say Igbo boys anymore because they said, mainly the Anambra boys are like that. And the Anambra, when you are obsessed by success, by all means, you are in trouble. Because if you are obsessed by success, then any way goes, any means goes of making that success. That is why those boys are carrying drugs. The reason they are carrying, of course, not every Anambra boy, but many of them do that. The reason why they are carrying drugs is because they are obsessed by success, and their community and their environment want them to bring success, to be successful by all means. So they use any means possible to be successful. So it could be very bad if you are obsessed by success. But at the same time, it could also be good. But you shouldn't be obsessed by the success. You should be obsessed by your goal rather than by success. So if your goal is to glorify God and the kingdom of God, if you are doing it for God, then success is good. If you want to, or if you also want to use that success to do good to others, that success might be good. But if it's just about success itself, then it's going to lead you to something bad. You must have a goal that is bigger than the success. You must have a goal as well that is bigger than you. So once the goal is bigger than you and bigger than your success, then then it's going to help you. Yeah, your goal is always going to correct you. Determine for yourself 3 or 4 or 5 sphere area where you only intentionally think about. That will already remove 70% or 80% of the wrong thoughts, because you discipline yourself to only think about distance. But there will still be uncontrollable thoughts sometimes, but you have already sieved out a large bunch. But you don't intentionally, that's already a good thing. You intentionally don't think about what you don't want to think about. You already know what you want to think about intentionally. All of that will be coming, but you are not stopping on them. So that's a big one. But the biggest way is for you to find out where the source of the wrong information are coming from. Those 5 sources. What am I hearing that gave birth to this? What am I saying that led to this? What am I touching? What am I saying? What am I reading? What am I that's leading to this? If you can cut off or change the source of those thoughts, then you are good. That's why environment is 50% of success.
Also, what if you cannot cut off? For example, you are living. For example, this TV.
Yeah.
You are living in the house where everyone in the house.
Okay, I cannot cut off. For example, I live in Ukraine, and in Ukraine, I am I'm going to court every week, 3 times a week. They are putting a lot of pressure on me. So it's something that doesn't depend on me. The situation around me, they make me to go to court and I have to go to court. If I don't go to court, I'll go to jail. So I have to go to court. So this is a situation that is beyond what I see or what I hear, or this is something that is beyond me. But what I could do is that when I'm in court, I could create my own environment. Then I have to create my own focus and make sure that my focus is stronger than the reality around me. So you've got to develop a strong focus. If you are able to put focus on something, whatever is happening to you, it's not really your reality. The real reality is what you focus on. Even though what you are going through is your reality, but if you develop a strong focus, you could make your focus mentally to supersede and to be stronger than what is going on around you. So even when I'm in court, if anybody has gone with me to court before, when I'm in the courtroom, I'm focused on another thing. I'm doing my own thing. For example, I've been in Ukraine for 8 years, not traveling out. So I could be crying and be weeping because it's all pain and it's injustice. What I didn't do, I'm being accused of it. So I could be living that reality. But what I did, I created another reality. I started HMT I focus on make that reality more stronger than the evil accusation that I'm in. I focus on writing my books. So I create a new reality that way than the country of, and then the military, I mean the police, the court, and the accusation, the wrong thing. So I create a greater reality than the physical reality that is pressing and that is trying to destroy me. Television, that is, I don't even talk about. That's rubbish. That's easy. Television, that's what I overcame when I was studying in university. Because when you are living in university, you live in the room and there are all your neighbors and television, sometimes sex, and you have to be there and to go to study. So you have to overcome it. Well, I think we had a good day today. That's it for now. So congratulations to all of you that you are able to complete this series on thinking. But don't you think that that's the end of the teaching? That's all that there is to know. No, that what I've given you so far is just about 10% of what it is for me to give to you. So thank you guys.